We are going to start. That's fantastic. Fantastic silence. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, colleagues, and friends, welcome to the launch of the Women in Conflict Zone initiative led by the State of Qatar and the Qatar Fund for Development. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Raquel Lagunas. I am the director of the gender team for UNDP. UNDP is a very good partner of the State of Qatar, and we are very honored to be here with you to launch this initiative. Today, and thanks to the commitment of the government of Qatar, we are here to spotlight and to remember one more time that even in conflict settings, investing in education, in economic security, in representation, and investing in amplifying the power and the voice of women under the principles of equality and inclusion are the conditions to build peace and sustainable development. We will open with a very compelling video from the Qatar's Development Fund, and after the video, it will be my great honor to introduce the welcoming remarks of the two most senior women in the government of Qatar, the ministers that I will introduce for the welcoming remarks later. So we are very lucky to have you here. We also will introduce the remarks from Akin Steiner, our administrator, UNDP's administrator. And we will showcase, we will have two women to showcase also how far we can go when we invest in education. To finish this event, we will have a discussion with three experts, the ones that make things happen in the field. So without further delay, let's watch now the video on women in conflict zones. Thank you so much.
Because of who we are, we get caught up in war in ways you can't imagine. Abuse. Violence. Killings. Torture.
Abandonment.
We even fear getting our periods.
We have no place in the peace process.
The same has been true in almost all wars and conflicts in history.
They look to us for things we've always done. Care,
And domestic responsibilities.
affection.
Under stress,
Loss.
Uncertainty.
And pain.
do you have any idea what that's like?
Didn't think so.
Did you know you have a better chance of peace when we're involved?
Didn't think so. This is what it's like for us.
In conflict,
Famine.
Genocide.
Our lives and those closest to us are at risk.
We suffer more than you.
and somehow, we go on with it.
So know us,
Hear us.
because we need you.
And you need us.
Qatar Fund for Development, alongside its strategic partners, empowers women and girls in times of conflict through humanitarian aid and developmental assistance.
We need you, you need us. This is the message. Women are leading, women are strong, women are survivors, but the costs are terrible. And they carry the consequences of conflict. The message was clear, hear us. Congratulations for this powerful video to the Development Fund from Qatar. And now I am very honored to have here doing the opening remarks to Her Excellency Lulu Al-Halter, Assistant Foreign Minister for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the State of Qatar. Welcome, Minister.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, good morning, everyone. I'm very delighted to be here with you today. Today is a very special day to me at the personal level, but I know to my colleagues at Qatar Fund for Development who have been working relentlessly on this project, as well as my other colleagues from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and everyone who has been dreaming about this program. Thanks to your efforts, Qatar Fund for Development, this program is becoming a reality, and thanks to our partners, UNDP, and all of our other partners, which I'll be mentioning in a minute. Ladies and gentlemen, Excellencies, Your Excellency, I'm very honored to be here with you today to announce a long-awaited initiative that the State of Qatar has been working on. At the sidelines of the 77th session of the United Nations General Assembly, I would also like to take this moment to thank the organizers of this event who have been working tirelessly to organize this event and bring us all together today. We actually live in a world where women continue to experience high level of violence, poverty and exclusion, particularly in conflict settings and fragile contexts. Scholars have shown that women in conflict zones are, in particular, at risk in these settings, where only 44% of those women get paid for the work that they do, compared to around 66% of men in the same countries. Although there has been progress in reducing or the reduction of poverty in recent decades as compared to 1990, women in fragile environments are often left behind. To give you an example, between 1990 and 2017, most of the mediation efforts had 0 women participation, despite the fact that they are the most affected, unfortunately. And in general, only 2% of mediators are women and 8% of negotiators are women. These are the global figures. Most peace agreements, as I said, don't necessarily include women in those processes. In recent years, though, laudable work for empowering women in conflict zones has been initiated and achieved by various international organizations and NGOs, but the gap is so huge and any new efforts are welcome. The State of Qatar has been long working on projects that aim to empower women and girls, and today we announced an initiative that aims to expand and strengthen those efforts by the State of Qatar and its strategic partners. We are announcing an initiative that aims to overcome the negative results that arise with crises, whether it be the lack of education, healthcare, and basic skills that enable women to reach their full potential. Today, I proudly announce the Women in Conflict Zones initiative, which has been developed by the Qatar Fund for Development. The Women in Conflict Zones initiative not only aims to support conflict-affected women, it also offers a platform to highlight prominent issues such as marginalization, poverty, and the inevitable outcomes of armed conflicts. Women in Conflict Zones will pursue its mission within and across 6 core areas: crisis response, education, healthcare, economic opportunity, technology, and peace building. Representing the State of Qatar is Qatar Fund for Development, and it finances and implements humanitarian development assistance programs and projects where the main goal is to support women to live dignified lives even during conflicts. With that said, prior to the launch of this initiative, Qatar Fund has been supporting girls and women in many countries. Just to mention some, there is Afghanistan, Lebanon, Somalia, Jordan, Iraq, Turkey, and many other countries as well. There are a number of projects that have come under this important initiative, which include a partnership with various organizations within different countries. One of these projects is a partnership between Qatar Fund for Development and the Digital Citizen Fund, known to the media as the Robotics Girls. The Digital Citizen Fund basically works on empowering girls in developing countries to gain access to technology, virtually connect with other institutions in other countries, and obtain the necessary skills to succeed in today's expanding global market. The partnership between Qatar Fund and the Digital Citizen Fund aims to provide women and girls in Afghanistan with access to quality training on information technology and entrepreneurship. Another important project under the same umbrella is actually training 90 girls in Afghanistan itself. And if you allow me, this is an opportunity, and since Rina Amir is here with us, and thank you so much for making the time, and Katrina, thank you so much. I mean, I saw you the other day by coincidence, so thank you so much for making the time as well. So my point is, despite all the efforts that all of us are making to create opportunities outside Afghanistan, in the United States, obviously, in Qatar, Albania, and other countries, I think it's very important also to create opportunities within Afghanistan itself. And this is exactly the aim of this very specific initiative, to train girls in Afghanistan itself, to qualify them for the health sector. This specific program is a 2-year program to train 90 girls to hopefully graduate as health workers in Afghanistan itself. And we have all the agreements by the de facto authority there. So there are only a few projects under the Women in Conflict. These are only a few projects under the Women in Conflict Zones initiative. Through this initiative, women will gain access to quality education, economic opportunities, healthcare, in the most volatile contexts. The announcement of this initiative comes with great responsibility. And the State of Qatar and its strategic partners reaffirm their commitment to achieving the main objective of the Women in Conflict Zones initiative. We will continue to fund, support, and implement projects through humanitarian aid and developmental assistance to provide women and children with the tools and awareness that will support them in living dignified lives within conflict settings and help end the cycle of destruction. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us today to celebrate this initiative and the great outcomes to come. And please help me in welcoming our next speaker to the stage to talk more about the importance of this initiative. My dear friend and colleague, Her Excellency Mariam Al-Musnad, the Minister of Social Development and Family in Qatar, and one of the role models in Qatar for women. She's been working for years and years in the field of development, and I'm glad that now we will see her expertise not only in Qatar, but hopefully at a global level. And before I do that, I also would like to thank Her Excellency Minister Khadija, the first woman minister in the government of Somalia, as the first minister of climate change, a new ministry that was just established in Somalia. And obviously, this is a very important portfolio in Somalia. Hopefully, we can collaborate together. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much, and please help me to welcome Her Excellency Mariam Al-Musnad.
Good morning, everyone. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I am pleased to welcome you to this critical launch of Women in Conflict Zone initiatives, led by Qatar Fund for Development and the UNDP and several other strategic partners. I would like to thank Mr. Eikim Steiner, I hope that I pronounced it right, the administrator of the UNDP, and Mr. Khalifa Al-Kawari, the Director General for Qatar Fund, for being here today. Ladies and gentlemen, the State of Qatar provides assistance to those in need domestically and internationally. And I am privileged to be in a position where I get to serve the women and children from conflict zones and to help them put the pieces of their life back together in any way that we find possible. Our approach is very simple. We see every victim of every conflict in the world as equal under God. In fact, recently, His Highness the Emir of Qatar, Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani, when asked what is his vision for the role of women in the society, he said, "In the eyes of God, we are all equal, men and women." Since the women and children in conflict zones are the most vulnerable victims and who often become the most dispossessed, it is right that we should shed the spotlight on them today and raise the alarm bells for the growing conflicts around the world. When these victims have nowhere else to go, we get to open our arms and help them build a new life. Thanks to Qatar Fund, thanks to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and all the efforts that our colleagues are doing. Let me share with you a brief video about a special child we were recently honored to serve. Can we please play the video? This little girl is just one example of so many women and children who needs help. And I'm really happy that you're launching this initiative today because you get to help so many women and children like her. For me, all this work that we're doing together to help those victims and all the multilateral efforts must have those women and children needs at the heart of what we do. We must work together to stop the roots of these conflicts before they erupt, and more women and children will need critical help. His Highness the Emir Sheikh Tamim recently urged the international community to end conflict before they spiral out of control. Instead of waiting for a problem to reach to my house, we must be serious and stop the problem where it starts. To do that, we need multilateral system and all governments to act. Finally, while that essential peacekeeping work is being done, the State of Qatar will continue to care for victims of conflict regardless of their race, religion, and region. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency, for your encouraging words. And now I am very pleased to give the floor to UNDP's Administrator, Akim Steiner. Akim, please, do you want to join us here?
Honourable Ministers, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it's a little bit difficult to get up here on the stage after watching these two videos that really are very powerful, very painful to watch, and at the same time, as you just said, Minister, are also a reminder that nothing is inevitable if people care. And I want to congratulate you not only for what you have been able to do for Myra, but for so many others who, particularly in the context of what happened last year in Afghanistan, were caught up in an extraordinarily traumatic and catastrophic situation. I think we all, every day, unfortunately, are learning painful lessons about what it means to try and work in conflict settings. And tough as it is, I was just saying to my dear friend Khalifa, also watching these videos is not easy. But this is the true face of war. This is the pain of people who get caught up in something that they have had no contribution, no role in causing, and yet they are the victims. So when we come together today under the leadership of the State of Qatar and also with Qatar Fund for Development to launch this initiative of women in conflict zones, I want to first of all congratulate you for already for a number of years having taken a clear stand on what it means to understand that in conflict people are affected differently and gender matters, sadly, in this sense. In so many of the conflict countries that we work in, and UNDP as the United Nations Development Programme actually works in well over 50 of the internationally designated crisis and conflict countries in the world. It is perhaps a sometimes sobering but nevertheless vital part of our daily work to try and find ways of helping people to come out of these crises and conflicts scarred. Yes, they will be, because that's what conflicts do and wars do, but also with a perspective that there is a future, that there is hope, because sometimes in the darkest moments of those moments that you show on that video, the only thing that keeps people going is their family, their friends, sometimes strangers who extend a hand of help, and hope that somewhere at the end of this tunnel, things can be different again. We ourselves are actually a very humble partner in this initiative, because 3 years ago when we evaluated our work and our already long-standing commitment to addressing the particular interests, realities and challenges of women and girls in conflict zones, didn't do that well. Not because we didn't try, not because we didn't care, not because we didn't look for ways of doing it. It is very difficult sometimes. And you made a very good point just now, Minister, that in so many contexts, women who are half of the population that is affected are not even at the table when programs are designed. They are not at the table when peace negotiations take place, and they certainly often are not involved when these programs are rolled out. We learned another very important lesson during the COVID-19 pandemic also, when together with UN Women we established the COVID-19 Global Gender Response Track. I always have to look at it because names that are 4 letters or words long are always more challenging to remember. Anyway, what we were doing is we were tracking the response of governments in terms of gender-specific responses, but also engagement designing the COVID-19 response, which was fundamental to understanding how you could help people more appropriately. And what we learned and what we found together with UN Women is that a mere 12% of government interventions targeted women's economic security, which in itself is already a tragic error, and only 7% supported unpaid care work. the things that basically would keep people alive, women alive, their families alive, were not even on the radar of most of these policy responses. And how much more true is that in conflict and crisis settings? So when we join you today in this partnership and in also many others, we do so with, yes, humility, but also a deep sense of responsibility that in being the United Nations Development Programme that is present in virtually every country that is unfortunately experiencing the kinds of scenes and realities that we saw, we are deeply determined to first of all bring something into that dark moment that is extremely important, and that is development is the complement, the twin sister to the humanitarian response. It has to be part of trying to enable people to find their own way out of this crisis again. And Minister, you spoke about Afghanistan, not least because also our partnership. We were there last year. In fact, we were thinking about what would happen on that day a year before it happened, because we were convinced that Afghanistan and its people would fall into a terrible crisis because of the nature of this geopolitical drama that was unfolding. We were prepared to stay, and we stayed, because we believed that at this moment, and with the extraordinary economic implosion that followed, helping people where they are actually earning their living, including, for example, with women, and thousands of these micro-enterprises that are led by women, would be one way to actually be able to help them while essentially all government, all economic infrastructure was collapsing. It's an example of the partnership that we have developed together, because I'm very proud of the kind of partnership that we have developed with the state of Qatar, and particularly with the Qatar Fund for Development, because we are pushing boundaries together, we are learning together, and we are helping together to help others actually make big leaps forward. So let me not take more time, because there are others who will speak in a moment and offer more testimony to what we're actually, in a sense, coming together to address when we have this Women in Conflict Zones initiative. But just to say that we are a very proud partner, and we also want to commend the state of Qatar for having the vision, but also the commitment to follow through in adding more momentum to what very often otherwise are statistics, reports, empirical realities that we transact in international meetings. But from Myra to the millions of other women and girls, hopefully this is one way we can do something very concrete. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Akim, always wise. Let's now transition to the future, to the hope. Now we are going to hear two very inspiring stories from Amani and Somaya, who will share with us the profound impact of education, and specifically the experience of being supported by a scholarship by the government of Qatar and the Qatar Fund for Development. Their stories, as we will see, showcase not only how exceptionally brilliant they are, they show also that they can shape the future not only for themselves, also for societies. So without further delay, we move, and we will connect with them through, so we have them in the, okay. Let me first introduce you to Ms. Amani Al-Makda. She is currently a lecturer and head of International Relationships Department in the Islamic University of Gaza. She has studied the challenges faced by women engineers in the context of siege and conflict, and she has an impressive career already. So please, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we hear you very well.
Yeah, thank you so much. Good morning, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. Peace be upon you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'm Amani Abdel Fattah Al-Maqadma from the Gaza Strip in Palestine. I'm honored to be here today, participating with my story as a woman in conflict. In 2020, I have been selected to be one of the MENA region students, the Development Policies and the Practices Program, the DPP, offered by the Graduate Institute of Geneva, in partnership with Hamad bin Khalifa University and funded by Qatar Fund Development Scholarship Program. My journey in this program was similar to that of my colleagues, that full of joy and challenges. However, the team was very supportive and expert in their field. What I really liked about the program is the focus on building our communications and intercultural competence leaders in our society. These competences, which are necessary for everyone, are crucial for women in conflict. This knowledge that I had got during my study motivated me to look for ways to support other women and girls in my country. Therefore, last year, I volunteered to train girls aged from 11 to 13 years at UNRWA Refugee School on presentation and communication skills in English, inspired by the courses I got in the DVP program. Throughout the training, I witnessed how the girls are so energetic and willing to succeed, but lack mentoring and guidance. I observed how the imposed culture and conflicting messages that received about their bodies affected their posture and self-confidence, and how they are isolated from having real opportunities to grow. I was happy to see the progress in their skills as we proceed, and what made me very proud, the two girls team was the winner of the UNRWA English presentation competition. The training finished, but my ambitions toward women empowerment has no end. As I'm speaking to you now, I'm also starting my PhD studies at Edinburgh University in the UK, focusing on women digital entrepreneurship in conflict zones, facing multi-level challenges as other women do, but with the help of my family, friends, and determination, I can overcome them. I want to end my story with a quote I love from George Adams, saying that there is no such thing as self-made man. We are made up of thousands of others. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your story and for your persistency. So let's move now, and I wanted to welcome to Ms. Somaya Faruqi, and we are going to connect with her as she is in Afghanistan. Here we have Somaya, a student representative from the Afghani robotic team. She is the robotic superstar, and she is in Afghanistan, as I said. So Somaya has been the captain and mechanic of the Afghani robotic team. She has helped to increase women's participation in this field for at least 6 years. So welcome, and the floor is yours. Somaya, over to you.
Thank you. Excellencies, respected dignitaries, ladies, gentlemen, and especially young girls who are listening today. There are millions of girls around the globe who are curious. Girls love engineering, technology, science, and numbers, but who are deterred by harmful gender stereotypes, by lack of support, and also by unequal access to resources to pursue their future. It's unfortunate that even in 2022, girls face many barriers to pursue their education. In some countries, like my country, Afghanistan, they are not even allowed to attend in their schools. Globally, there are 132 million girls who are out of schools, a number that harms every individual in a society, including men and boys. No one should be allowed to compel girls to stay at home and not to be educated. We must all work together to find solutions to reopen the girls' school in Afghanistan again. There is a big why, because the education is a fundamental human right. It's not a choice determined by the government, by the politics, or by the society. Imagine that girls only go to primary school. No more learning after that? What will happen to their future? What will happen to their dreams, to their goals? They are all questions that whirling around the all Afghan girls' minds, but no one is here to give us a logical answer for that. Our team, the Afghan Girls Robotics Team, is currently in Doha. They have access to educational opportunities. So all nations, including the Muslim nations, provide meaningful learning opportunities for everyone, including the men and boys, and also as well as women and girls. So it shows that education is very important. Some groups like ISIS, like Boko Haram, they are opposite of the girls' education. I don't want this to happen in my country as well. We don't want to go in that previous dark decades. We want to progress, not dark decades. Afghanistan cannot afford to waste any opportunities. And if we want to be successful, if we want to be a successful country, we must educate everyone that we can, regardless of their gender. And every country, every successful country, understands this point. Must we as girls are needed equal access to resources and to study, freedom to experiment, and also be creative. Leaders must invest on girls' education, regardless of their gender, especially the girls, because they are half of the youth, and which are the most influential individuals in each country, because their ideas can change their society. Their ideas can shape the future in technology, healthcare, security, and especially they have the main role in spreading the freedom in their societies. Education for me is about endless possibilities. It's about designing new technology that can help the people and also make a positive change in my country. It's like our team. The Afghan Girls Robotics team it started from 2017 and continues up to now. Youth ideas can change the future. It's what our team did, and it shows a very big role in our society to show that we should invest on girls' education regardless of their gender. My message to every girl is that believe on yourself, believe on your dreams. It's your belief that makes you unstoppable. And my request from international communities and everyone who is empowered that invest on girls' education. Today, millions of girls in Afghanistan, they are not allowed to go to school. So be our voice against any kind of violence. And as I say, education is our human rights. It's not a choice that is determined by our government. Thank you.
So Somaya is only 19 years old, and she shows this bravery in the middle of a huge backlash in her country, and she has been pushing boundaries. So our commitment here is to amplify her voice, absolutely. How not? So thank you for your unique story. And now we are moving to the panel discussion. So I'm very, very happy to invite our panelists to come to the stage and sit. Hello? Hello is when I start saying hello 1,000 of times and kind of, where is the microphone? So let me, we still have a very interesting conversation to have here, and I would like to turn now to our expert panelists. We count on experts on the three priorities of the Qatar Fund, education, innovation, and economic recovery. So our panelists will share with us today what does it work really on education in times where education is disrupted. They will share also why innovation matters. Do we have time for innovation in times of conflict? Absolutely yes. And also, our panelists will share how to go and transcend beyond counting number of women in trainings and kind of promoting a real long change in economic recovery. So I am very, very happy to welcome our colleague Soubu Halal, Senior General Advisor from UNICEF. She has more than 35 years of experience in humanitarian and development programs and expertise in gender equality and social and behavioral change, with a special focus, of course, in child and girls. So my question to you, We all know that when countries affected by conflict stop education, and we also know that physical schools are safe spaces for girls, right? So when the schools are shut down, they face two very important obstacles for their education. Digital, the difficulties to access to digital education, but also the spikes of violence against them. So the question is, we need solutions. We need to know what is working right now. And UNICEF is the best agency to share with us which are the concrete solutions, your experience, approaches that work in situations where sometimes states are not functional. So over to you.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for the opportunity and congratulations for this initiative, promising initiative. It's really glad to hear about the content of this, so congratulations for the efforts. Indeed, when we have these emergencies, usually it's the girls who are affected more and they are taken out of school, sometimes because of the protection, sometimes because of the security, sometimes because of the burden that's added on the girls and mothers and women in domestic care. So they are the ones who are mostly affected by that. But at the same time, they are also the hope, and they can contribute, and we have seen amazing stories today. So that's why in promoting education in UNICEF program, we really rely on girl-centered approaches in education. We want to contribute to the response through community-based initiatives that will help not only address the educational needs of these children and girls and women, but also their resilience, how we can empower them, how we can build their capacities in a way to yield and product and serve their communities and their families in a better way. Some of the solutions you were asking about, we have a lot of skills building program. The skills building program, I give an example from Sudan, where we actually reached the most marginalized through digital skills and notepads and all those elements. And we try to give them the skills, not only just for learning, but life skills, like negotiation. In a context like Sudan, where child marriage rates are really high, negotiation can help them in taking that decision. Negotiation can also help them in contributing to any peace process that you mentioned. Nobody has been part of that in the past. So these kind of skills are really an important aspect of education. So we are trying to kind of, through some safe spaces, get these life skills to the girls, and at the same time provide an environment, safe environment, where we can combine the education component with the protection component, so that the environment is conducive for them and it is safe for them. And we add to it in many contexts of the countries where we are supporting our programs, like Makani project in Jordan, for example. It has a community center which has 3 pillars: education, protection, but also voice and participation, which is the empowerment component that we are talking about. Communication campaigns to bring families to add the value of education is really an important aspect. We also, for example, in Rohingya refugee response, there was an interactive radio program with the families, listening to them, interacting with them, but also encouraging them. At the same time, while we are working on community level, we also work at system level. I know my time. System level. For example, in Pakistan right now, we are supporting 4 mobile centers for education. So it's helping the system also to kind of support. In Yemen, I'm just trying to give some examples. We supported salaries for female teachers in rural area, and we know how much that female teacher in rural area can be a model for girls' education in those contexts. So what I'm trying to say is that we are trying to cover community-based, human-centered, girl-centered approaches, but also system strengthening, and in collaboration with many other partners, NGO partners, which is by itself an empowerment component. So one of the benchmarks for gender in our commitment for a humanitarian is to engage women group, girl-led group. And that's the empowerment component which when we bring our work, whether it's the psychosocial support, whether it's the communication campaign, through partnership with local women organization, which by itself is also an empowerment component.
Thank you so much. I was asking them to forgive me if I interrupt them because I know we have to, to control the time. So thank you for the effort. And thank you for giving us very concrete solutions implemented by UNICEF. And now I move to Lilian. Lilian Abuzeki, Head of Solution Mapping with UNDP Lebanon. Lilian has over 10 years of experience in design thinking, user-led solutions, and innovation. She is member also of the UNDP Lebanon's Gender Working Group. How not? And my question is, why is experimentation and innovation important for gender equality? We may tend really to think in conflict, there is no time when we face crisis. So the question is how innovation can alleviate the harmful consequences of conflict, but also help, for instance, to promote women's leadership agency, or to promote social change, and address also, for instance, violence against women. So over to you, Lilian. I'm very happy you are here with us. And
I'm very happy to be here too. Thank you for having me. It's truly a pleasure. And Raquel, I think your question is very important and very valid. It's something that the Accelerator Labs has been asked ever since its inception 3 years ago. And it's good to kind of build context around this question. We're living unprecedented times in highly uncertain environments. Nothing about what we're living today is something we've seen or done before. So there's no equation or formula or best practice where cause equals effect and you can do X, Y, and Z and get there. And that naturally will mean that the only way forward is to experiment. We need to learn fast and act quickly. And the only way to do that is to kind of bring back some certainty to what we know about this world right now. I come from Lebanon, so some of you in your most recent memory, it could be the Beirut blast. That's what's on your mind. But basically, besides the Beirut blast that has left our city in pieces as both a nation and a people, for the past 3 years, we've been going through some of the hardest times of our lives. An economic crisis, the currency having lost most of its value. It's currently at 2% of what it usually would have gotten you in 2019. This had detrimental effects on the education sector, the healthcare sector, on everything. We don't have electricity, transportation is hard. But as professionals in development, as people who care about gender in this room, every person knows that poverty, when it hits women the most. And that's exactly what happened. Add COVID to that, and add the numbers that in the past 3 years, poverty line in Lebanon has jumped from 42% to 85%. We know that women are actually a prime target for us to work with, to actually understand what's going to happen in this uncertain time. To do that, besides bringing back jobs and bringing back education to women so that they can participate and so that they can lead, we actually also need to give back women their time. After COVID, it looked like women in any average home need 34 hours a day to actually get through to what they need to do, which is impossible. But that surfaced the fact that we need to target men. And what we did at the Accelerator Lab is we built a game online that targeted just men, and over 6,000 men participated in that game, even though we expected only hundreds. And right now I can tell you with a level of certainty in this uncertain time, that what leads men in Lebanon to participate in home care duty or engage in that topic is actually self-independence. You want to be a self-independent man, you better know how to iron that shirt. So, thank you. That's basically why experimentation is important in the world of today.
Thank you so much. I think it was a very compelling example, convincing example. So thank you, Lilian. Thank you. And now I'm going to move to Caitlin Boyce, our very good colleague, Caitlin from the Gender and Crisis Facility. She is expert working on women's peace and security for more than 20 years, including engaging in the UN mission in Liberia, focusing on women's peace and security and gender-sensitive constitutional reform. We are lucky to have you here. Caitlin, that's my question for you. So women's peace and security agenda is very clear, framing the gaps, right? And how the threat that women face during conflict, women's economic security, and a long list of challenges. So where do you see the most persistent gaps, the most kind of deep roots, the ones that we cannot push back and are more challenging? And also, what is the best way to ensure that women, in terms of the economic empowerment and economic security, are at the decision-making at the very beginning, not at the end, at the very beginning? So over to you. Challenging questions.
No small question. Thank you so much, Raquel. I'm also really glad that you linked today's discussion with the Women, Peace and Security agenda, because as I was listening to the incredible testimony of the scholarship recipients and listening to the objectives of the initiative itself, it really struck me that the WICZ Fund itself demonstrates the relevance of this 21-year-old global agenda for national peace building. We at UNDP use the WPS agenda as a shield and a sword. We use it to justify a women's economic approach to economic recovery. And in our world, beyond just paper, I think that these strong normative frameworks are really important because they justify, in fact, demand that we consider women's economic security as essential to their broader security, that we see women's economic rights as critical to their participation in the successful peace processes that we need to prevent conflicts from happening in the first place. And that's really our objective at the end of the day, not to make conflict a little nicer for women, but actually to make sure that it ends. One of the really early studies of the Women, Peace and Security agenda found that in 15 years of progress, the studies and evidence that they had demonstrated from the field were that women's double burden as caregivers and breadwinners had literally prevented them from taking the seats that they were owed at the table where the decisions were being made about their lives, and that's been raised today. But the WPS framework is even more powerful when it's brought together with the Sustainable Development Agenda, as Akeem very rightly foreshadowed earlier, because I think that it shows us how interdependent gender equality, peace, and sustainable development are. One will fail without the others. And so what does work was your question. I was looking and thinking back on UNDP's work on women's economic empowerment, and I thought of three very key messages that I wanted to convey to the fund about what we can learn about development in conflict contexts. Firstly, we must move beyond short-term, small-scale, temporary programming for women. We need to make sure that we build women's skills and capacities for future-oriented economies. They are the future, and the future, as you mentioned, is moving very, very quickly. I wanted to raise an example, UNDP's work in Yemen, which supported women-led solar energy microgrid cooperatives based in rural areas which were incredibly hard hit, being very close to the line of conflict around energy availability. Now, as you might expect, the initiatives overperformed in terms of the economic and green economy benefits. But what I think is most transformative were the secondary impacts that the training and the building of capacity of women had on their status and standing within their communities and their families. It also changed the way their male family members considered the roles of women. Second, we cannot address economic issues in isolation from empowerment in other areas of women's lives. We are not singular issue people. UNDP has been scaling up, for example, approaches that integrate women's economic empowerment and gender-based violence, finding that when you integrate those two approaches in women's lives, you have dividends in both the uptake and the sustainability of economic empowerment, but also in GBV prevention.
Finally, and I'll end here, we need to move beyond simply counting women beneficiaries. We need to move towards collecting and using data that shows us what gender transformation looks like. More than sex-disaggregated data, we need gender-specific data about what the needs and strengths and priorities of different women are. And we need to gather this data not just from women, but with women. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Catherine, for the big effort of summarizing such a big ideas, some big solutions. Let's clap the three participants. I'm going to invite you to leave very nicely because we are going to close. And I wanted to summarize. This is something that I love to say, so I'm going to say that. So I think the main investment, and it's very clear, is we don't need to fix girls. We don't need to fix women. We need to fix the systems. So, and this is what the Qatar initiative is trying also to do. So I'm going to invite, and it's very, very much my honor, to give the floor to His Excellency Khalifa Hassim Al-Khawari, Director General of the Qatar Fund for Development, for concluding remarks.
Morning. Just for the record, I did iron my chair today independently. No help. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it gives me an immense pleasure to be with you, joining all of you today for the launch of the Women in Conflict Zones initiative in partnership with our valued partner, the UNDP. As we heard from the speakers, while it can be impossible for anyone to escape the devastating grip of war for women, such situations are even more compounded with the preset discriminatory social patterns. Gender-based violence, sexual harassment, and denial of fundamental human rights, including the right of education, participation in the workforce, are boldened in war, leaving women and young girls at the point of no return, captives under the mercy of emerged groups and human smugglers. It is, therefore, comes as no surprise that as the number of conflicts has doubled since the turn of the millennia, we see that mortality and malnutrition are becoming more widely prevalent among women and newborn children in conflict context. In fact, a staggering 60% of preventable maternal deaths occur in countries and communities in conflict and forced displacement. And what it adds salt to the wounds is that 1 in every 5 refugees or displaced women in a humanitarian situation suffers from sexual assaults and violence. But together, with a strong determination, goodwill, and action, we can turn calamities into opportunities. Today, we have heard the inspiring story of Sumaya and Amani. Both aspiring young women come from countries submerged in protracted civil and military conflicts. Still, they are willing to do what it takes to turn the tide and charter their future with hope, determinations, and hard work. That is the core of our mission at Qatar Fund for Development. We believe in the right for everyone, everywhere, to live a decent life with equal access for basic human freedoms, such as education, health, and economic opportunities. We strive to give hope, promote justice, spread equality through our interventions to leave no one behind. That is why we came together today to celebrate yet another initiative specifically targeting and supporting women in conflict zones. This initiative shall prioritize efforts and mobilize funds for greater protection of women in conflict situations. It shall primarily facilitate and encourage women economic and social participation in the workforce as a mean to dignified life. It shall also advocate for conflict prevention, peacekeeping, and above all, against sexual violence and conflicts by supporting the international community's call to actions on protection from gender-based violence in emergencies. The initiative will also help focus on humanitarian and development aid to promote gender equality through access to finance programs for women, education, and capacity development programs, including vocational training for young girls and women. These interventions, among others, will bring about changes in women's lives in conflict zones. Ladies and gentlemen, as we launch Women in Conflict Zones initiative, I cannot but be thankful to all those who contributed to these endeavors, our colleagues from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, UNDP, and other partners that have been closely working on addressing some of the most pressing development challenges worldwide by introducing innovative and impactful initiatives aligned with the Sustainable Development Goal. We hope this initiative further cement and complement the international community's effort to protect the most vulnerable population in conflict context. And for that, we look forward to expanding the spectrum of partnership and invite all of those who are out there who will believe in this cause and ready to join us to take actions. Thank you.
Well, we are closing here, and we can close only by thanking the government of Qatar and the Qatar Development Fund for the leadership. So thank you so much for allowing us, UNDP, to help, to be here, and to be part of this initiative too. Thank you so much, and let's go to the next step. Thank you.